Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to episode number 28 of the Kingsmen Sports Podcast. It has been a while. Life has gotten extremely busy for about everyone you've ever seen on this podcast. But we are back looking to try and we've powered through the holiday season. We've powered through the beginning of the new year, and hopefully things settle down a little bit. They won't necessarily for me until the second week of March. I hope they do for you, but it doesn't sound promising quite so
There's
soon.
light at the end of the tunnel. So,
But hey, it's a good thing to be busy. That's good news for the most part. But we are back ready to talk about the NFL playoffs. It's a new edition of Mount Rushmore, and we're going to take a look at the MLB divisions. We rank them from best to worst. Little
most
bit
exciting.
of a variation there, but we'll talk about that. Oh, most exciting, without a doubt, are always going to be the best divisions. Just how it ends up working out. But it's going to be a lot of fun. So let's go ahead and dig right into it. We're going to start with the NFL talk. We're going to go through the entire playoffs. We had Sean on. We did our playoff predictions, which, spoiler alert, didn't go great for either of us necessarily.
Yeah.
But let's go ahead and take a look. We're going to start with wild card weekend. We're going to start with the AFC, which I think maybe was the more exciting wild card games. Dolphins, Bills, I think kind of played out more closely than anyone had anticipated. Everyone thought when Skylar Thompson was going to get a start, it was just going to be Buffalo rolling right through them. But the Bills really kind of sleepwalked through that game. Miami gave them quite a bit of a scare, but it was Buffalo still getting the win, protecting that home field advantage. And they kind of showed that, hey, we are definitely, we're not playing our best football, but we're ready to rock and roll.
Yeah, but I still think that's kind of where they struggled, was they weren't playing their best football, and you need to be on your best football that time of year. It seemed, they started out real high. Dolphins have always kind of been their kryptonite, but they were on a roll there for a little while. They were looking immortal, and then it just seemed like these last few weeks that people, I don't know if the scouting reports got better and they found what they need to do to push them, but they seemed beatable with that win.
It went back for me to their game against Green Bay, which is, of course, I really dove into. And Green Bay actually kept it close, was not expecting that. And I'm like, okay, the Bills don't look unbeatable. And really after that, they kind of just, again, were sleepwalking their way through the season. DeMar Hamlin, the situation, of course, very scary stuff. I thought that would light the spark. It didn't really look like it did. It almost looked like it more drained their energy out. So that kind of sucked to see.
Except
but
for
the
their
Bills
special
did
teams.
Move their special teams. Well, that 1 week, Naheem Hines definitely,
yeah,
he had him. He did what I was hoping he'd do the rest of the season when I picked him up on fantasy. But nonetheless, they were going to take on the winner of the Ravens and Bengals. Let's hop to that game. Bengals did not look good in this one either. 24-17, they got the win. I think that said more about the Ravens defense. I think people underestimate this defense every single year. Tyler Huntley did not look like the Tyler Huntley we saw last year, and I think that ended up being the difference maker because the Ravens offense was just really, really bad, and the Bengals are going to put up points no matter against who they play, and the Ravens just couldn't get that one last big touchdown, that one last big drive to really give them the chance to pull off the upset.
Yeah, and what really surprised me, Ravens defense, like you said, always kind of underestimated, and they can keep in the game with anyone. But what really surprised me was when Bengals are at full strength on their running game. I was really expecting a lot more from that because Pirine did some work when he was their only option, and I thought that combination of the two was going to be a lot more potent, and it really didn't seem like that. Joe Burrow got a little roughed up there in that game, and so it was interesting to me. But they weren't as beatable. They weren't looking as beatable as the Bills to me. They still looked like a solid football team that knew what they wanted to do in that game.
And they were a team that never was really healthy from like the midway point of the regular season on. They never were at 100%, so that really hurt them. Let's jump to the most exciting game of Wild Card Weekend by probably a good amount, the Chargers and Jags, where we were reminded, hey, the Chargers are going to be the Chargers. And I think this is the story of Brandon Staley. I have never been a Brandon Staley fan. You can ask anyone who I've ever talked to about football, he, in my opinion, is the worst head coach in football. They need to find some sort of replacement because Trevor Lawrence looked abysmal in that first half, got that last drive, which kind of gave them some momentum. Then he looked like just a superstar coming into the second half. Joey Bosa, he just disappeared, was having all sorts of temper tantrums on the field. This feels like it could be a signal for the Chargers that, hey, things need to change. There needs to be a new era, but it also signified there is a new era in Jacksonville with the Jaguars, not only getting back to the playoffs, but getting a pretty historic comeback win in the postseason.
Yeah, living just south of San Diego, there were a lot of very sad people around on that day. It was a very close game. It was fun to watch, but honestly, with the way
wait. Are we still gonna use San Diego there? They're LA. Are San Diego fans still Charger fans? I didn't know.
Yes, actually, for the most part, they are.
I didn't know. I did not know.
Some burn the jerseys. Some are like, no, that's not my team anymore. But for the most part, most of San Diego still likes the Chargers, and especially south of the border where it was, Baja. But most of them still like the Chargers.
I just want to make sure.
Yep. Either way, a lot of my friends are from the area. I have a lot of San Diego Charger fans, and there were some sad faces. And honestly, the way that these two teams had played all year, this was the one that I was least excited about this game. I thought, the way that each team has kind of been playing, do they even really deserve to be here, or are they just kind of, they got lucky with the divisions that they were in, and we're going to end it with that. But no, I mean, coming down to a kick, you can't really ask for more. Showtime. So it was fun to watch, and I figured the winner of that game would be out soon. So.
And I will say, I think this was a battle of one of the more underrated head coaches in the NFL, and Doug Peterson, against one of the more overrated coaches in the NFL, in Brandon Staley.
I heard the most hair of any starting quarterback going against each other matchup. So
without question. And that was probably, you could just have one of them, and that was probably still true. So
yeah,
without question, the best flow down in postseason history. Now let's go to the game that I was least excited for, the Seahawks and the 49ers over on the NFC side. Seahawks made this a better game than I anticipated. I did not think that they had any chance. I had watched both of their regular season matchups, and while, the scores weren't blowouts, there was no question in those games that the Niners were ever their win was ever in jeopardy. Seattle came out and really smacked the Niners right in the mouth. The Niners got off to a very slow start on offense, but Brock Purdy kind of took over in that second half. He looked much better. I think that might be the best half of football I've seen him play, and it really turned into a blowout. Whoever was getting that last spot in the NFC, whether it would have been the Seahawks, the Packers, or the Lions, all of them were going to get probably the exact same result against San Francisco. So that one wasn't surprising, but it was nice to see Purdy kind of step into his own and have a really good game with his arm for once.
Yeah, that game almost reminded me of the Colts-Cowboys game, where it was close, and then they hit the gas, and it was not close any longer. So, I mean, that was exactly what I think we were all expecting. Seahawks can put up a fight. They turned into a much better team than any of us thought at the beginning of the year. But at the end of the day, I mean, the Niners, when they're a complete team, they're a complete team, and they're going to do what they have been doing nonstop for many weeks in a row.
Yeah, I remember before the season started, a lot of Seahawks fans were saying, if we just beat Denver week 1, we can lose the rest of the games. We'll be good. Well, guess what? They made the playoffs, and they still have a top 5 pick. So all in all, pretty good season for the Seahawks.
And Denver's not happy with their
No, Denver has all sorts of issues. Let's move into probably the upset of the first round. The Giants beating the Vikings. Yeah. Open up a lot of eyes on Daniel Jones and the defensive deficiencies of the Minnesota Vikings. Now, being a fan of an NFC North team, I knew the Vikings defense had not been great all year. It's something Sean and I had talked about multiple times. But for Daniel Jones to come out and just run wild against this team. Daniel Jones, probably in that playoff game, bought himself a contract extension. I think he's going to stick around with the Giants. They might have something brewing there. They need to get better defensively, obviously. But I think this comes down to Kirk Cousins is a game manager. He really is. He's not a guy who's going to go out there and make that big play. And that was never more apparent than on that fourth down play when he threw it about 5 yards short of a first down. You got to have a guy take a shot there. Kirk Cousins, he can get you to the playoffs if you got enough talent around him, but he's not going to do much more once you get there.
Yeah, and like you said, talent around him. Was getting to the playoffs Kirk Cousins or was it Jefferson? I mean, come on. And that defense did what they needed to do to keep that offense in games. They won a lot of real close games this year. That's kind of been their bread and butter. But yeah, Giants were really surprising. This was another one that it was like, do they even deserve to be there with how they played? They kind of lucked out with how you get a tie and then you inch ahead of your division rival for that final spot. But yeah, that was almost fun to watch. It almost happened on the anniversary. I'm looking at some of my Facebook memories and I'm like, hey, Giants are beating Patriots. Hey, Giants are doing what they shouldn't be doing in the playoffs. And it's like, okay, cool. Like, let it ride. Let's knock the Vikings out and see what happens. So that was cool to see.
First of all, I don't appreciate you bringing that up because the Giants on both those runs took out the Packers in the NFC Championship one year and the 15-1 team the next. So not too thrilled about it, but it was the first time the Vikings had lost a close game all year. Their closest loss before then had been an 11-point loss to Detroit. Remember, they got blown out by Philly. They got just absolutely blown out by Dallas. They got blown out by Green Bay and had that 11-point loss to Detroit. So it was the first time they lost close, which is why I think a lot of people still in the fourth quarter were like, this is what the Vikings do. They're going to come back, force overtime, and then get the win. So it was surprising that they didn't do it, and it was Daniel Jones getting the postseason victory. The Monday Night Football game, spoiler alert, I did not watch this game. I was broadcasting basketball all day. I didn't need to watch it, though. I got the story of it. Tom Brady is not Tom Brady anymore. The Cowboys defense is really good. Brett Maher can't make a kick. I mean, I think I hit all the points right there in that short statement.
Yeah, that just about sums it up. It went exactly like I was expecting it to. You know, we had watched that whole season build up and okay, the Bucs are not the team that they were last year. The defense isn't the same. The offensive line isn't the same. Tom Brady isn't the same. They got there because they were in the weakest division in football. Somebody had to, and they got kicked around by a better team.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's move on to the divisional round. We'll go back to the AFC where this game was closer than I thought it would be. The Chiefs beating the Jags by 7. This is the game that made me more concerned about the Chiefs. I'm like, this offense, yeah, they're still putting up points, but man, they are not that elite offense. I mean, Tyreek Hill, I know they're still just fine without Tyreek Hill, but he was the thing that took them from that elite level offense to just cheat code level offense. So without him, it's more reasonable that they can get upset any given week. I think the Jaguars also played a much better game, but I think this was the story of the Chiefs defense. The Chiefs defense played pretty well, made some plays in the secondary. Jalen Watson, shout out to former Coug, incredible interception in that ball game. These young guys in the secondary for Kansas City are really stepping up.
See, and I disagree with you entirely where, that Chiefs game, that was a hurt Mahomes doing what he needed to do to still get the win and fight again on another day. Seems like the moral of this playoff story is if you want to win, you hurt the other team's quarterback. But but it didn't work, and the Chiefs were able to, he came back at halftime and did what he needed to do to advance and then played a lot better the next week. So I don't think that it was so much the Chiefs were looking more mortal. The Jags did play up, and that's kind of been their story all year. But no, it happened exactly as I was kind of expecting it to, just with a little more suspense.
I was glad to have suspense with how the other AFC game went because I was really looking forward to Bengals and Bills, and it absolutely stunk. The Bills were absolutely terrible in this ballgame. 27-10, only put up 10 points on their home field in the rematch of the game that, of course, everyone remembers because of the Hamlin medical issue being called off. This was the game everyone had circled, and the Bengals just did whatever they wanted to Buffalo. Shut down that Bills offense completely. Joe Mixon went over 100 yards rushing. The Bills could not run the ball. Josh Allen struggled in this ball game. He still threw for over 200 yards, but man, that completion percentage was low. It felt like a couple of times he was just throwing it up and hoping Stephon Diggs could make a play. This was not the Buffalo team we had seen, but it's a Buffalo team that's going to be in our memory for the offseason.
Yeah, I came into this game thinking, ooh, I'm going to have a hot take and have, Bengals are going to sneak out a win here. And I was feeling confident in that bracket that I sent to you. And then I look and I'm like, okay, this was not how I was picturing it to go down. Bills just were asleep the entire game. And in home game in that weather, I thought for sure that they'd at least, make it a good game. But no, that was very disappointing and not what I was expecting when I said when I said Bengals winning.
And I'm glad you brought up the weather because honestly, that weather benefits Cincinnati. They have a much better run game than Buffalo. You talked about Mixon and Ryan. Those 1-2 are probably better than anything that Buffalo has outside
but
of
Buffalo's
Josh Allen.
used to it a bit more.
But being used to it and still not having the weapons to succeed in it, that's where it really came down to it. I mean, the Bengals ran all over Buffalo, and also Buffalo lost a lot in their pass rush. That defense up front was not good in the second half of the season. Now let's move into the game where I thought we'd see an upset. I didn't pick it in my bracket, but I told everyone the week leading up to it, hey, I think the Giants can beat the Eagles. I think they will beat the Eagles. Wasn't even close. Not even close. 38-7. Philly just stomped all over him. Jalen Hurts said, hey, yeah, I'm back. I'm feeling pretty good. And this team's just so good all the way around. Kenneth Gainwell ran for over 100 yards. Miles Sanders ran for 90. Jalen Hurts only had to throw for 154 yards. A couple touchdowns, by the way. Devontae Smith is coming into his own. This guy was really good at the end of last season for Philly. He's been really good since A.J. Brown got hurt in about the third quarter mark of the season. A.J. Brown's back now, but Devontae Smith has not slowed down. This team is talented all the way around. Their defense shut down Daniel Jones, did not let him get going, did not let Saquon get going. And we saw that, hey, there's definitely a big gap between the Eagles and Giants still.
Yeah, no, I did not expect an upset here. I mean, Eagles are just, they're a scary team. You almost put that offense on the caliber of the Chiefs right now. And then that defense can shut down anyone in the game. So no, I that kind of went exactly as I was expected. Maybe a few more than 7 points, but that was a blowout for sure.
A game I was expecting to be a blowout was Dallas and San Francisco because I thought, how do you stop a pass rush? You run the ball. That's how you slow down Dallas's best weapon on defense, which is that pass rush. San Francisco never really got going running the football. They finished as a team with 113 yards on 32 carries. Brock Purdy threw for over 200 yards once again, but it was the defense of San Francisco that just shut down the Cowboys. Dak Prescott, a couple of interceptions in that ballgame. Another disastrous last play ran by the Cowboys in a playoff football game. Questions are starting to come in. Is Dak the guy? There's bigger issues in Dallas, I think. I think they're still putting way too much on Zeke. Zeke is not the guy anymore. It's got to be the Tony Pollard show. Get Zeke
Except
on a
that he
smaller
left the
contract.
Game. I mean, that was an
100%.
ugly. Oh, that was not fun to watch. Seeing him leave.
Gnarly injury. But there's just so many issues going on with Dallas. Of course, now we know Kellen Moore is going to be gone. Dan Quinn's staying. Mike McCarthy is going to be staying. There's just a lot of team turmoil, it feels like, going on inside the Cowboys locker room.
Yeah, I've been saying all year I do not want any more sloppy seconds for my Indianapolis quarterback. If Dallas is stupid enough to let Dak go because of how this season went, no, we would take Dak in a heartbeat. Absolutely. And like you said, Zeke is not the guy anymore. I was actually impressed with what he did in that game after Pollard left. He really stepped up and was kind of a workhorse there. But no, it came down to that San Francisco defense, and they were just able to cause the chaos that they needed, force the turnovers, and and let Brock Purdy do what he's been doing all year. I mean, just fitting in with that offense exactly how he needs to. So, yeah, I was expecting it to be closer, but yeah, San Francisco there.
Let's just roll with San Francisco into the NFC Championship game. They were the first game with the Philadelphia Eagles, and of course, quarterback injuries. Quarterback injuries played a big role in this one. Brock Purdy tearing that UCL joint in his elbow, probably going to miss the beginning, your good chunk of next season. And then the Eagles just wore down that Niners defense. That Niners defense played really good. They were just on the field for so long. You can only ask them to do so much, and the offense was not putting up points. That offense, understandably, looked lost out there. And as soon as you knew Purdy couldn't throw the ball anymore, this game was a wrap. And the Eagles heading back to the Super Bowl.
Yeah. I mean, when Christian McCaffrey is suiting up to be your potential quarterback, that's not a good situation to be in. And honestly, I mean, not a Niners fan in the slightest, but that was heartbreaking to see. I mean, that was a fun team to watch this year, I'll be honest. And to end like that, where you're at your fourth string, fifth string quarterbacks, you almost feel cheated out of an opportunity. And yeah, I saw a lot of people harping on that Niners defense, like, oh, not number one anymore, are you? They were on the field for almost 2 hours. I mean, you can't do anything there. So Philly took care of business, and that was a very disappointing game. I was excited to watch that one, and I mean, good job, Philly. You got the depth, you got it done.
Took care of business, and they're headed to the Super Bowl to take on the Kansas City Chiefs, who beat the Bengals 23-20 in a fun game for sure. It was a close one, not exactly as high scoring as you would have thought with these two teams coming in. But again, I think these defenses of both these teams are a little bit underrated. Patrick Mahomes looked much better, 326 passing yards, a couple of touchdowns. The run game kind of disappeared for Kansas City. It's because they were trying to, I think, keep up with Cincinnati, who got off to a pretty solid start. The Bengals, Joe Burrow, a couple turnovers. That's not the usual for him. Those two interceptions, I think, were the difference makers. Some bad penalties as well by Cincinnati obviously cost him in this game. It was almost felt like the more disciplined team did come out on top in Kansas City. And again, it all comes to those two turnovers. And in games like this with two really, really good quarterbacks, one of them, more likely than not, is going to have an unfortunate turnover, which is the difference maker. And I think that's what it really came down to.
Yeah, I was a little concerned about this game. You know, you hear, okay, Patrick Mahomes, is he going to be okay? Kelsey, is he going to be okay?
Yeah.
Like, what are the Chiefs going to do without some big playmakers there? But no, they were able to take care of business. That defense showed up and put pressure on Joe Burrow. That's kind of been the key all year. If you get him rattled, if you make that offensive line make mistakes, they're hurting. They were hurting that game, and you can make him commit some costly mistakes. And so, yeah, that was an entertaining game for sure. I'm glad that it was that close, even with, some of those factors playing.
Now let's hop into the Super Bowl. We're going to give a quick prediction. Neither of us really prepared for this, but both being football fans, we obviously know who we're going to roll with in this one. I'm taking Kansas City. I think Patrick Mahomes been there, done that. Andy Reid, I think, is a fantastic head coach. I think Andy Reid might step away if they get the Super Bowl win. I don't think he really has much else to do. Go out with that Lombardi trophy. It's just the team that's been there against a team of new faces, young guys who haven't quite been in the Super Bowl yet. Of course, there are still some Eagles that were part of that team that beat the Patriots. I think this is a very high-scoring game. I'm telling you all right now, take the over. 50.5 feels like an absolute lock to me. So take the over in this one, but I'm going with the Chiefs to win it. I think it's going to be a really fun Super Bowl, though. One of the better ones we've seen in a while.
Yeah, this was one of them where I was looking at last round, and I'm seeing the quarterbacks on all four teams, and I'm like, this is going to be a fun Super Bowl. I don't care which way it goes at this point. I also have Kansas City coming out on top. I was thinking about changing my answer after I heard yours, but I can't. I think not only has Patrick Mahomes been there, but Andy Reid, I mean, this is his old team. He was back there in the McNabb days, and to be able to still be around and taking this team to the next level, he is a fantastic coach. And I'll be honest, I would not be surprised to see Kansas City figure out Jalen's run game better than other teams, even though their defense is not as elite as other teams that have played the Eagles. I could see where they just figure out that playbook and can contain him a heck of a lot better than some of the other teams that they've played against. So I'm looking for it to be a very good game, but I have the Chiefs coming out on top too. You got a score prediction?
Score prediction. We'll go 34-31. 34-31 Chiefs win.
Okay, I was thinking 42-35. I'm thinking.
Ooh, you're going real high scoring.
Yeah,
you're going real high scoring. I like your
go.
score. I like your score. I hope that's what we see. I hope you're right. It could come down to whoever has the ball last, and I'm going to trust Patrick Mahomes over everyone in the NFL now. It's not even most in the NFL. It's everyone. I'm going to go with Mahomes every single time. So there it is. Our quick NFL playoff recap.
Hold on. What do you think about that petition of Kelsey Mom doing the coin flip? You like that?
I love it. I love it. Let's do it. Yeah, let's do it. Absolutely. I'm all for it. I love listening to their podcast. I think it's tremendous. So yeah, I'm all there for it. I hope we see a Kelsey Mom coin toss. It's going to be a fun one for sure. Really looking forward to this Super Bowl. That does it for our playoff recap and Super Bowl preview. We are going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll have the Detroit Tigers Mount Rushmore that's coming up next year on the Kingsmen Sports Podcast.
There are many ways for businesses to expand their customer base, but one of the tried and true ways of increasing customer loyalty and recognizing employees is to put your name and logo on promotional and motivational items. You can find a wide selection at Alderson's Awards West Printwares in Centralia. Shirts, hats, coats, mugs, pens, and more, all with high-quality screen printing or embroidery done on site. For a full catalog of items at great prices, go to aldersons.net, and remember, you will get maximum impact at Awards West Printwares. Since 1978, Rogers Key, Card & Strophe has offered their clients excellent representation in all facets of legal areas as a general practice law firm. They're serving Thurston, Lewis, Mason, Pierce, and Grace Harbor counties. Our team of professionals' focus is on personal injury, family law, criminal defense and DUIs, estate planning, corporate, business, and real estate law. You can find them at budbaylaw.com for more information.
Welcome back to the Kingsmen Sports Podcast. It is time for a new edition of the Mount Rushmore series. This week, it is the Detroit Tigers, who you immediately have names popping off in your head as soon as you hear that franchise. So let's dig right into it. And I can tell you, this is going to be a first from me, a first time ever. I'll tell you exactly what it is at the end when you see the top four. So we're going to start off with one of the two very, very obvious choices, Ty Cobb.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
One of the greatest baseball players of all time, spent almost his entire career with the Detroit Tigers, a couple of years away. But I mean, this guy was a special talent, an incredible hitter. There's conflicting reports of kind of what he was as a person, which is kind of hard to really put into words, so I'm not even going to bring that up because it's too conflicting. But on the field, he was incredible. 368, 434, 516 slash line with the Tigers, 111 home runs, 1,811 RBIs, 4,189 base hits. That is just ridiculous to even think about. 944 career OPS, franchise leader in almost every single category offensively. I'm going to run through them all. Batting average, on-base percentage, hits, runs, total bases, singles, doubles, triples, RBIs, stolen bases. And then he's also right behind some guys in a couple of other categories. Wasn't a home run guy, so he's not in the top 10 there. First Tiger to go in the MLB Hall of Fame. The all-time MLB leader in career batting average, which I know brings in those other 2 years, but it's still something we obviously.
But those were his twilight years too, so he might have even
brought it down a little bit. One of the greatest players of all time, an icon, a guy you think about on the all-time baseball team. When you start talking about baseball, start talking about those great players, Ty Cobb's going to be in the conversation. Probably top 10 of all time.
Yeah. We always start with the easy ones, right? So he spent 22 of his 24 years with Detroit. 6 of them, he was a player manager. And again, just to recap, that did not mean he was a player that assisted the manager. It meant he was the actual skipper of the team. If you have a few spare minutes, I just invite whoever's listening, take a look at his baseball reference page. Just take a few minutes and check it out, because I swear he has more bold numbers than he has non-bold numbers. He led the league in pretty much everything constantly. He was one of the first players ever inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame, and he received 98.2% of the votes. No one touched that for 60 years. He was as unanimous as it got. He helped the Tigers get to 3 straight World Series matchups. Unfortunately, they lost all 3. And that was at the start of his career when he had so much adversity that he was facing. I mean, maybe it was the hazing of other veterans on the team. Maybe it was the fact that his mom shot and murdered his father.
How to do it.
2 weeks before he actually started his major league career, but he kind of developed a reputation as the most ferocious ball player in the game. I mean, teammates have said ball games were like a war to him, and that sort of hyperbolaed into him being nothing but a mean old cuss. And like you mentioned, there's conflicting reports. Most of the hate and the distasteful stories have been debunked over time. And he has a lot of fans and players' adoration for his determination and his grit. But he was an MVP. And remember, you couldn't win it multiple times back then. Once you won it, you were disqualified from winning it anymore. He was a Triple Crown winner, a 12-time batting champion. He would have had a lot more awards if they existed back in the day. And like you said, he holds the career batting average record and the record for inside the park home runs. He has 46 of them. 46 inside the park home runs. 9 of them were in a single season. And in fact, that year in 1909, remember this was the dead ball era, so before home runs were a huge thing, he led the majors with 9 home runs without a single one going over the fence. So that was kind of cool. And he could slug if he wanted to. I think my favorite story I learned from looking this guy up was on May 5th, 1925, Cobb told a reporter, "For the first time in my career, I'm going to try to hit home runs," because he was kind of taking shots at Babe Ruth. Babe Ruth was playing the game a different way, and he's like, I could hit home runs if I wanted to hit home runs, but I don't try to because that's not what the game is about. So he told this reporter, for the first time, I will try to hit home runs just to show you that I can. And that day, he went 6 for 6 with 2 singles, a double, and 3 homers. That series, he batted .632 with 29 total bases. And then he went back to playing like he always does because that was more important to him. RBIs were much more important than home runs or hits. Okay, well, hits are important, I suppose, if you want RBIs, but home runs, at least. He was the best dead ball player I could ever possibly think of, and one of the best center fielders of all time. You can't go with anyone else as number 1 on Rushmore here.
Yeah, it honestly did not take any thinking power at all. I was distracted with other things, and I was putting in my top 4, and Ty Cobb was immediately on the list again.
Yes.
One of those just no-brainers. Let's go into another no-brainer, Al Kaline.
Mm-hmm.
Again, this is the guy who you probably think of when you think of the Detroit Tigers. It was actually the first name that popped into my head. It was Al Kaline, and I'm like Ty Cobb too, obviously. But Al Kaline was known as Mr. Tiger for these Detroit fans. 297, 376, 480 slash line with Detroit, 399 home runs, 1,582 RBIs, 3,007 hits. So he got over the 3,000 mark as well. An 855 OPS. Franchise leader in home runs and second place in about every other category besides triples and stolen bases because that wasn't necessarily his thing. Right. Spent all 22 seasons with Detroit. Hall of Famer, has his number retired. And one of the coolest facts that I was looking at when I saw Al Kaline is he came right to the Tigers at 18 years old. never spent a single day in his career in the minor leagues, was just a pro ball player, and it didn't take long for him to establish himself as one of the very best players in all of baseball, and has just a really cool name. I love saying Al Kaline. Fantastic name, fantastic player, and again, probably the face of the Detroit Tigers. If you ask most Tiger fans in the franchise, they're going to be torn between the two, Cobb and Kaline.
Yeah. And Al Kaline, not basic at all, am I right?
No, not at all.
Never mind. Science. It's cool. Yeah, like you mentioned, signed right out of high school. This guy was getting ready for his prom when he signed his major league contract. Didn't spend a day in the minors and came up and was a batting champion a couple years later. Like that just doesn't happen.
Not shabby.
So cool to see. Yeah. 22 years with the Tigers, 10 of them were Gold Glove seasons. He went to 18 All-Star games, and now that's over 15 years, not over 18 years. So
yeah,
little less impressive when you could duplicate, but still right there. Won a batting title and a World Series for the Tigers. Hall of Famer. In his early years, he usually led the league in, or was close to it, in outfield assists too. I mean, he was getting 15 to 20 assists as an outfielder every single year. And then people were like, we're going to stop testing that guy's arm. So, I mean, he did everything. He was a great all-around player, loved by the city of Detroit. Even after his playing career, he was involved with the organization any way he could, back office, announcer, up until his very death. I mean, it just committed his entire life to that team.
As much as the fans loved him, he loved that organization just as much, if not more. An incredible Detroit Tiger right there. Let's move into the one you and I have seen play in person, Miguel Cabrera.
Yes.
This guy kind of was in the shadows of Albert Pujols for most of his career. He's a big reason why I have trust issues with ESPN, because ESPN did not have him at 100% guaranteed Hall of Famer, which is absurd. It's the dumbest thing I've ever read on ESPN in my entire life, and there's been some bad stuff. This guy was
not
a
only
special,
is he
special
a Hall
talent.
of Famer, I bet he's a year one Hall of Famer.
Oh, without question. Without a doubt. First ballot for sure. 306, 383, 517 slash line with the Tigers. And I had to go back and double check because I accidentally looked at his career stats on Baseball Reference, and I'm completely just ignored and factored in the Marlins career. 369 home runs with Detroit, 1,324 RBIs, 2,246 hits, 900 career OPS. And those numbers, the averages have dwindled because the last few years have not been kind to Miggy, although he did reach that 3,000th hit as well. And he reached that 500th career home run as well in the last few years. Led the franchise to a World Series, got them there where they unfortunately were playing the Giants on an even year. So it's just nothing you could really do about that. Modern day face of the franchise. Forget Justin Verlander. He left. Miggy stuck with this team. Won a Triple Crown. And in today's game, winning a Triple Crown is just unfathomable because it happened often back in the day. Still extremely, extremely impressive to do. But he was the guy who kind of broke the seal now in the modern era to get that Triple Crown. Always having fun playing the game of baseball. I mean, there's so many stories. I just remember this last year when George Kirby tried to pick him off and he kind of looked around and then Kirby tried to do it again. He's like, dude, seriously? I'm not going anywhere. And also the one in Seattle where he's trying to catch the ball in foul territory and ends up playing with the guy's beard with his glove on the way back. Just having good times like that. And he will be the next Detroit Tiger to be in the Hall of Fame. No question about it. Awesome guy. Awesome kind of role model for players to look up to. Just look at the reactions when he did get that 3,000th hit and 500th home run. His teammates have always loved him. Fans have always loved him from any team. Incredible player.
Yeah. And we alluded to him when we were talking about the Marlins. Now, I know that's a lot younger of a team, but he was not on the Marlins for very long, and he still was considered to be on their Mount Rushmore. You triple that service time with Detroit, and it is an absolute no-brainer. He is as feared of a hitter as they come. You mentioned the stats, and like you said, that was with some serious career slippage over the last few years.
Yeah.
But he's still a 2-time MVP, 8-time All-Star, 5-time Silver Slugger, 4-time batting title champion, and Triple Crown winner, all with the Tigers. He's likely to inch up a couple more spots on the all-time leader lists before he's done. It's been a heck of a career, and he is just loved by Detroit and all of baseball. Even more so in the Latin community. I mean,
Yeah.
I was looking at, some of these reporters, their 5-year-old articles, and they're like, we can't really connect with him as much. We don't really understand him as much. And there was some off the field issues early in his career. And it's like, no, over the last few years, as he's matured into a player, as he's been the veteran, not just to that team, but to the league. He was that all-star, the commissioner's choice all-star this year, and everybody just went crazy for him. He didn't do much in the all-star game, but still people went crazy for him. They love him. Absolute Hall of Famer. It's going to be 6 or 7 years from now, depending on if he does in fact call it quits next year. First ballot.
I'm telling you, Mariners fans, get your tickets to watch the Tigers when they are in town. I have a pair of tickets for when Detroit's in town to watch Miggy play for the final time in Seattle. It's going to be a special one, especially kind of a passing of the torch. And you also have that Venezuela connection between him and Felix. I'm sure Felix will be in town. He loves the guy as well. Now let's move to number 4, where this is where Jacob and I split off a little bit. You can't really argue with either of them. Both of them are definitely 4 and 5, whichever way you've got it. I went with Charlie Gehringer. Incredible defender on the baseball field. One of the greatest second basemen of all time defensively. They called him the mechanical man because he was so consistent. You knew what you were getting from him every single season, every single game. You knew what Gehringer was going to bring. 320, 404, 480 slash line with Detroit, 184 home runs, 1,427 RBIs, 2,839 hits, 884 OPS. Yeah, he was pretty good offensively too. I was just talking about his defense. The offense, mix that in. This guy, no question, belongs in the Hall of Fame. The Gold Glove wasn't around when he was playing, so he never won one. He would have won plenty of them if he was playing in the days of the Golden Glove. Hall of Famer, doesn't have a Tigers logo on his cap because it is a portrait style photo. So his hat's facing away. But if you turn his head 90 degrees, there's no doubt in my mind he's got a Detroit D right there on it, without a doubt. MVP, 6-time All-Star, made it to the 1935 World Series, won a batting title. He just did it all for a very, very special team. He did it in an age where, again, those awards weren't quite given out like they were. But, man, this guy took pride in his defense. He's one of the few guys that put defense really over offense, and he was still elite offensively. He just did it all. So Charlie Gehringer gets the 4th spot on my Tigers Rushmore.
So yeah, my 4th has to go to Hammer and Hank, and I don't mean Hank Aaron. I mean the original Hammer and
Giving
Hank.
out that Hammer and nickname. Whew.
He was the first. So here we have one of the greatest sluggers in baseball history. Spent all but his final year in Detroit. He was able to rack up a 319, 412, 616 slash line with 306 homers, 1,200 RBIs, 748 walks, over 1,500 hits, and almost 60 WAR over just 12 seasons. Some of his prime seasons being cut down by wartime service. He actually has more service time in the armed forces than any other MLB player in history. His first game back from World War II, he hit a home run. Just like picked up where he left off. And this, again, wasn't playing baseball for the armed forces. This was, I am going overseas and actually serving my country multiple times. He won 2 MVP awards at 2 different positions. Not very many have done that. That's a very short list. I don't even want to mention half of the guys on that list. So we're gonna say he's been in good company. Went to 5 All-Star games, helped Detroit secure 2 World Series championships. He hit 58 home runs in a single season, barely missing Babe Ruth's mark. Number 59, he hit number 59, but it was considered non-existent because of a rainout. And then he was leading the league in walks that year, many of which were intentional. So, I mean, speculation, of course, but very easily could have hit 60, I wager. And then he still prioritized RBIs over homers and worked tirelessly to help his team out however he could. He switched positions to make room for up-and-comers. He trained other kids coming up. I mean, he just did whatever was asked of him. First Jewish superstar in all of sports. I mean, back in the days, they didn't have too many guys to root for. He was one of the first guys to publicly welcome Jackie Robinson because he'd been there. He'd seen all of that. And he's like, no, you're my opponent, and I'm still welcoming you with open arms there. And then bonus points, he grew up in New York and still told the Yankees no thank you to a contract and signed with the Tigers after college. So I appreciate that all the more.
This anti-Yankee rhetoric gets big applause here on this podcast.
Always.
So we're all about that. I had Hank Greenberg on my honorable mentions as well. Alan Trammell also on there, and Lou Whitaker, which means this is the first time I haven't had a single pitcher on my Rushmore or honorable mentions. So that's the history for us. Jacob, you didn't quite stick with me on that.
No. I had Gehringer and Trammell, but I had to put Justin Verlander. I mean, before we were stuck with him in the AL West, he was still a lights-out pitcher in the Central. And Rookie of the Year, MVP, Cy Young, half a dozen All-Star games, over 2,300 strikeouts. I mean, that's pretty solid numbers to at least be an honorable mention, I would say.
Yeah, not
the
biggest Justin Verlander
from
fan.
What I hear. Yeah.
Very anti-steroid. I'd loved it if his brother came on the podcast. So if Ben's watching, come on, let's talk some baseball. But no, he very, very talented. There's no denying what Justin Verlander has done on the mound. But Trammell, Greenberg, and Whitaker just, I think, separated themselves for me. But it was a tough Mount Rushmore this time around. It was a fun one to really dig into. A lot of cool stats were in this Mount Rushmore. So it's always a blast going back and seeing these teams where you don't really think of just immediately those four guys that jump off the page on you. Right. It's fun to actually dig in and do some research. So this one was one of my favorite ones just for that reason. So next time we will do the Minnesota Twins as we continue kind of our AL Central theme as of late. That's going to be a fun one as well. Yeah. There's some modern guys you could throw in there, but you're going to have to kick out one of the old guys. That one's going to be hard, especially for that fourth spot, but that'll be coming up.
And it's not just the Twins. If I remember right, it's going to be the original Senators, right?
Yes, the original Senators. Yep, that's how we're doing it. So,
and there's a lot of Hall of Famers, so
it's going to be hard. It's going to be difficult. Yeah. We're probably going to pull some hair out trying to come up with this one, but it's going to be a lot of fun. That'll be coming up on the next episode. We will take our final break. When we come back, we're going to give a quick little preview of ranking the MLB divisions from best to worst, most exciting to least exciting, however you want to look at it. That's coming up next here on the Kingsmen Sports Podcast.
Athletes, the time is now to get serious about improving yourself to reach your goals. We all know that college recruiters and professional scouts put a lot of importance on those tangible measurements, such as a 40 time, your vertical leap, cone drills, and so on. Proactive Physical Therapy in Tumwater has a special, unique training program that will improve your results across the board. If you are serious about raising your performance to the next level, you need to talk with the pros today at Proactive Physical Therapy. Check them out online or call for an appointment today.
They'll offer you permanent space for a fraction of the cost to build your own. Go online to check out Pacific Mobile Structures.
Welcome back to the Kingsmen Sports Podcast. Jacob sticking around for the entire episode here in this episode 28. Unbelievable that we're on episode 28 now. It's been a fun ride. All right, we're going to rank
number 28's off the top of my head.
There's some. There's some out there. We kind of gave up on that one after a while. The numbers.
After you hit Griffey, do you really need anyone until you hit Felix, Ichiro?
No, Felix comes well before Ichiro, so we'll get there. We'll get there. If we want to start doing that, we'll come up with one every single week. So we'll have a 29
That'll help
for
with
you
the
next
post
week.
images, I think. So
there you go. There you go. All right, let's get back on track. We're ranking MLB divisions from best to worst.
And actually,
let's go ahead and
how would you feel about worst to best? Just keep it a little
worst to best. We can do worst to best.
Okay.
Right.
I
Jacob
think
told me he's gonna ask me a
fun.
question live, and I was way more stressed than I needed to be for that.
No,
one,
you really didn't need to be.
All right, we'll start with the worst.
Curveball is not a fearful curveball.
It was a floater. We're going to start with
attack. Sorry.
Most of our list is the same. There's really one difference in our list, but we'll go ahead and get into that. AL Central is the bottom of the barrel.
Yeah.
And it is due to, I think, a lot of these teams are young, building up. They've got a good foundation, like the Royals. You got these guys that you know are going to be the face of your team. Bobby Witt Jr. obviously is going to be one of those guys. Vinny Pasquantino looked really good at the end of last season. Teams like that, the Twins are a little bit different. They still have a chance with Buxton and Correa. The White Sox just can't ever seem to be healthy. The Tigers, they're in a bad place, but they've got some promising pitchers coming up. And then you got the Guardians, who are clearly the cream of the crop in that division with that staff. But I mean, depth-wise, after Cleveland, there's a pretty big drop-off. While the White Sox and Twins might be able to compete for a wild card, they're on the back burner. And then you've got those teams in Kansas City and Detroit that just aren't going to come close to the playoffs.
Yeah, couldn't have said it better myself. Unless some serious surprises are on the horizon, Guardians are going to take this lackluster group without much of a fight. White Sox and Twins might hover on the good side of 500, but they still have some. I honestly forgot that Correa was a Twin again. I got whiplash from that whole situation. That when I was building this list, I was thinking he was in one of the other half a dozen places. Tigers and Royals, they're not there. They're going to need some serious help before they even reach 500. But I like what Cleveland has built, but not a lot of excitement there in that division.
Yeah, Cleveland is a good team that can clearly go on a run and contend for an AL pennant, obviously, from what we saw last year. But after that, nothing. Let's move to number 5, and this is going to be the other Central, the NL Central. Mm-hmm. I think they're kind of on the downhill slide. Cardinals, I think, are still clearly the best team. You got the Brewers that are in there that are trying to stick around, but I think the Brewers are headed in the wrong direction right now. I think they've got a good staff, but that offense quickly fallen off a cliff. A lot of people are high on Chicago. I'm not quite there yet. I don't think they really contend for a wild card. I want to see them actually turn this thing around. Mm-hmm. And then the Pirates and Reds are in a bad place. The Pirates are in a much better place than Cincinnati. We at least know the Pirates have some guys who are coming up. Brian Hayes, O'Neal Cruz. They're going to probably lose Brian Reynolds around the midway point of the season if he even makes it that long. The Reds are just completely lost. Still don't know what they're exactly trying to do. It's a disaster of a franchise. They're on par with the A's on figuring out how they're trying to attack this thing. So, again, really good team at the top of the division. Kind of falls off after that. But I think the Brewers are better than the White Sox, and everything else is pretty much a push for me in that division, comparing them to the AL Central.
Yeah, and what really stood out to me in the NL Central, there were some real interesting moves this offseason for teams, but they were more damage control moves than exciting we are going to win moves. I mean, Cardinals got Contreras, but they lost Yachty. I mean, ouch. Cubs got a whole ton of, Bellinger and Mancini and Swanson and Taylor. I mean, just they spent all this money in the offseason saying we are going to be a team. I still don't know if they're close to a deep postseason contending ball club right now.
Yeah, they should probably spend some money on that rotation because that did not get better.
Right. Milwaukee is going backwards. I don't know why, and I don't know how far, but they seem much more interested in their checkbook balance than their wins and losses balance. It's not going to work out for them. Pirates are looking to the future. Reds are looking somewhere. I don't
Have their
really
eyes
know.
closed. No, they have their
Yeah.
eyes closed.
Yeah. We'll take all of their players from them that they want to trade to us for pennies. So
Just keep on giving them.
yeah.
Pretty easy bottom two there. I don't think there's
Yeah.
much question. Number 4 is a little bit of a surprise compared to where they have been in recent memory. The NL West, I've got at number 4.
I was
It felt like
surprised that we matched here.
It felt like every team except for the Padres really stepped back a little bit, but not a lot. The Dodgers are still going to be very, very good. There's no questions about that. I like the moves that the moves that the Padres made. I really like Xander Bogaerts. I think he is kind of a sleeper in there that could turn that team around. I'm still fascinated what they do with Tatis, but again, Soto, Machado, you saw what that team could do in the playoffs when they did knock off the Dodgers. That race, I think, is going to be much better this year for the top of that division. I still give the edge to the Dodgers just because it feels like they're built for that longer push than the Padres are. Then after that, the Giants did not get their splashy move of the offseason. They got Mitch Haniger. I love Mitch. I do really love Mitch. He's not a needle mover, especially when he's got to be kind of the centerpiece, and there's not as many pieces around him in San Francisco.
Field too.
Health is a big concern as well. So, I mean, they definitely had their attempts to go get these big pieces. None of them ended up working out. Of course, Aaron Judge stays home. The Carlos Correa fiasco that was going on. Longoria is gone. They do keep a hold of Jock, but I mean, all in all, this team is kind of they're stuck in the same spot, even maybe a worse spot than they were the year before. And then the Rockies and Diamondbacks are still a little bit lost with what they're doing. I didn't see any game-changing things that even was going to push either team ahead or pull them back. Kind of just floated in the water. So again, depth-wise, I think the NL West falls flat of the top 3, but they have 2 of the best teams in baseball also in that division.
Yeah. See, and the reason that NL West went to number 4 for me, Dodgers are a lot less scary this year. They spent more money getting rid of their current players than they did bringing new players in this offseason. They are a team that has the depth that they can handle that. They're not going to tank, but they are a less scary team than they were last year.
Yeah.
San Diego really trying hard to be the best little brother that they can be. I mean, Bogaerts was huge. Juan Soto, I mean, that's still relevant right now. He is still one of the best, even if he didn't push them where they wanted to be last year. And then Tatis is due to come back at some point, right? So, I mean,
you think?
I hope. I don't know. So, yeah, that's going to be fun to watch those two. Giants really missed some opportunities, but they did improve as a whole. I think that they took a step forward, not as big of a step as the Padres, which might end up making them go backwards next year because they have to play each other a lot, but we'll see how it goes. Diamondbacks have some really solid young guys. They're still not there, but I'm really curious to see what they do over the next couple of years. The Rockies, I don't know if the Rockies ownership are baseball people. I don't think that they know quite what they want to do. They're just kind of waiting in the kiddie pool. They sell off some guys, but then they spend the money on stuff that they're not needy. I don't know where they're going.
I'm lost with Colorado. I do like how you hedged your bets with the Giants a little bit. How, okay, they could step back because this team stepped forward, but you're still saying, I respect it. It's something that I look to do as often as I can. But yeah, I think we're kind of in the same boat, top heavy, not awful teams at the bottom, but not the teams that are going to compete for a playoff spot. All right, now we're going to move into our lone difference here. And how we're going to do this is we're going to talk about both these divisions individually and then tell you where we rank them. It's the AL East and AL West. Those two are neck and neck. Let's start with the East. The Yankees still look like the team to beat, especially keeping Aaron Judge. The pitching depth still gives me concerns because of injuries prior to these guys and also Garrett Cole floundering at big moments. The Blue Jays are going to be right there putting the pressure on them to try and win. I really like Toronto. I still think their bullpen needs a little bit more help. I think they could have gotten a bigger splash. Of course, losing Teoscar Hernandez, who was a very loved guy in the clubhouse, is going to hurt them a little bit in that trade to Seattle. Tampa Bay, I'm never going to say anything bad about Tampa Bay again because it always comes back to bite me. Yeah, they got to the playoffs last year. It never felt like they were going to beat Cleveland. They didn't have the offense. They need to find some way to get more offense in this ball club. The pitching rotation, the bullpen is going to be absolutely fine. Baltimore, I mean, we saw it last year. Could they be the Mariners this year where they end up making that extra push and getting to the playoffs? I don't think so. I think they regress a little bit, but you've seen enough. I love Adley Rutschman. I think he is going to be a superstar for a long time. I really like what they have building. It still needs a little bit more time in the oven before it's really ready to go, especially when it comes to the pitching rotation. And then Boston's lost. Boston's not in a good spot. Watching Xander Bogaerts walk out the door, they are going to keep Rafael Devers. JD Martinez is gone. I mean, so many of these guys are leaving Boston. Again, I have issues with that front office letting these guys walk. Boston's going to be a bottom of the division team, I think, this year. I don't see them really keeping up with even
years,
Baltimore.
Honestly.
They're in a tough spot where I don't really see a way out from them. But those other four teams, you could tell me they make the playoffs, and it would not surprise me one bit.
Yeah. Last year, they had 4 different teams above 500. And I know the Yankees had some serious cooling off that happened, and there wasn't too much movement. There was a lot of good non-movement, and we'll give them that. But yeah, that pitching depth really scares me still. I don't think that they did enough to become a better team. Blue Jays did improve their pitching, which was what they needed, and that's going to be a lot of fun to watch. I am hyped up for the Blue Jays this year. I really am. I was hyped up for the Blue Jays last year, but we'll ignore that for now. Tampa can't seriously be as unlucky as they were last year, right? I mean, they had a very lackluster offseason. I'll even say damaging offseason with some of the people that they lost. But there's no way that they can have, 60% of their staff hurt, right? I'm hoping. So I'm still going to be, I'm still going to be, not selling on Tampa yet, especially with that coaching staff. We've said it before. We'll say it again. They can make very good players they can help players reach their potential. We'll say it like that. And then you got the Orioles. Orioles can't seriously be as lucky as they were last year, right? I mean, they had a lot of stuff going their way. But look at some of those prospects that are coming up for the Orioles. They might have 2 different Rookie of the Year contenders this year in Henderson and Rodriguez. I am excited to see what the Orioles are doing. Like you said, they kind of remind me of the Mariners last year where, okay, they got the pieces right there on the cusp. Are they going to be able to make a push and make the right moves? And they surprised me last year, so they might be even more surprising this year. And then the Red Sox are lost upriver with nothing that even remotely resembles a paddle. So we're going to sell on the Red Sox for a while.
And the Red Sox did at least bring in Justin Turner, so hopefully that's someone who sells tickets for them, I guess.
People apparently are okay signing with the Red Sox, but
so we'll see what happens there. Now let's move into the other division that we're both kind of neck and neck with, the AL East, the AL West. We're going to start with the Astros, the defending World Series champions. They brought in Jose Abreu. Of course, Mancini left. Abreu, I think, is an upgrade from Mancini in terms of the bat. He had a kind of sneaky good season last year. The big move, though, is Verlander leaving. That depth in that pitching rotation, it's not quite as deep. It's still one of the best rotations in baseball. Mm-hmm. But an injury or two all of a sudden could throw everything off. But I still think the Astros are probably the team to beat in the AL West. Next up, the Mariners. You and I could just talk about the Mariners all day long. They made some sneaky good moves. Teoscar Hernandez, I absolutely love that get. Of course, Colton Wong coming over, Toro and Winker being shipped out. I think Wong is going to improve their defense significantly. We're also going to get a full year of Julio being Julio. Remember that first month last year? He did not look good at all. And we're going to get a full year of this rotation with Luis Castillo in it. Also, I love the addition of AJ Pollock. I think that is a great move. It takes a lot of pressure off Jared Kelnick. He can just worry about facing righties. Bring Pollock in to face these lefties that he's mashed his entire career. I think that is a game-changing move for the Mariners, and it's going to help them be able to threaten Houston in that division. Next up, the Rangers, and of course, they had the big splashy move, Jacob deGrom, now a Texas Ranger. That rotation immediately gets better. I still have issues with the injuries of Jacob deGrom. It's been a long time since he's really pitched consistently every turnout that you need him. It's been a while for him to stay healthy. I think this offense is sneaky good. I still love Adolis Garcia. He's one of my favorite players in the division to watch. He is incredible. Can Marcus Semien really be the guy to live up to that contract? We know Corey Seager will be the guy. Nathaniel Lowe, also a sneaky good hitter. So I think the Rangers lineup is not the issue at all. The Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim, they're a disaster
the
Angels. Angels squared, cubed, whatever you want to say. They are going to have a tough decision to make. Shohei Ohtani, this is the last year I think he'll be an Angel. Mike Trout is starting to show his age a little bit, especially when it comes in to health. That rotation, I still don't like it one bit. I think it's pretty weak. And I mean, that lineup from top to bottom has a lot of question marks still in it. So I've got some issues with the Angels, but they still have the best player in baseball in Shohei Ohtani. I'm going to go ahead and say that because he does things no one else can do. And then there's the Oakland A's, who are just a disaster. The A's really did nothing. They brought in Trevor May. Kelso shout out there. But I mean, this team is just abysmal. Stephen Vogt walked out the door. He actually headed up to his home in Seattle, where he's now on the coaching staff with the Mariners. So, I mean, just things like that show you where this franchise is headed. They're going to relocate, I think, probably to Vegas. I think it'd be cool to see them go to Nashville, but I'm bummed for Oakland fans. But, man, this team, they're going to suck.
Yep. Yeah. I had them flip-flopped, and I went back and forth multiple times. So I had East as 3, West as 2, and I thought you were going to agree with me on the West at 2. So I put, no, we're serious. Hold on. Like, listen to us for a minute. So Astros are going to Astro. That's what they do. But 3 different teams working really hard to close that gap. You mentioned the Mariners. I'm basically just going to parrot what you said, but Mariners get Castillo for an entire season. That is huge because he was huge in the back half of the season when we needed wins. We kind of had a slowish start. And so being able to come straight out the gate with that is going to be big. Julio without that slowish start, just like you said, Teoscar Hernandez, Colton Wong. And I'm telling anyone who's going to listen to me, Seattle's young pitching core can go against anyone in baseball. There is no doubt in my mind. We were 3 swing of the bats away from sweeping the Astros last fall, and instead we got swept. It's that close, and it starts and ends with that pitching, and then we got a heck of a lot better on offense. I mean, if you think about it, look at the Mariners last season. Our designated hitter was a fill-in for whoever we couldn't fit anywhere else. It was not an offensive person. We have options this year where we can actually, okay, against lefties, we're going to play him. Against righties, we're going to play him. Against, this guy needs a rest, and so this is what our outfield's going to look like, but here is our designated hitter. When your designated hitter's batting 4 or 5 or 6 rather than 7, 8, 9, that is a game changer. Another game changer are the Rangers. I mean, we're talking about ownerships that are not listening to their fans, and we need wins. This ownership is buying wins. That they are hungry. They're getting there. I mean, they've made the moves to be where they want to be, and now we just need to see if they'll actually get there. And that's not just this last offseason, but the one before that. I mean, they are strong-arming into contending now. The Angels are just praying for a complete season with Shohei and Michael. I mean, There's no other way around it. They filled a lot of supporting holes that were just glaring previous years, but it starts and ends with Shohei and Trout. I'm telling you, now that Trout has a diagnosis, because that back has been bothering him for a while. I know there's been some other freak injuries that have put him on the sideline. Was it his calf or his ankle last year?
It's been
his
everything.
legs. Yeah.
It's been everything.
But that back has been bothering him for a while. I'm telling you, now that he has a diagnosis and can actually know what's going on and monitor that and figure out what he needs to do, he's going to be on the field more. I have faith in that. And then we have the A's. And like you said, I mean, we were saying the Rockies ownership didn't know what they were doing. The A's ownership does know exactly what they're doing. They don't want to be in that city any longer. And so Oakland will be baseball-less before too long. Nashville or Charlotte or Las Vegas, it doesn't really matter. Another team is going to get that ball club.
So Jacob did have the AL West at 2 and the AL East at 3. I have him flipped. I've got the AL East 2, the AL West at 3. It really comes down to I don't think DeGrom's going to stay healthy, and until you can prove me otherwise, I'm going to stand on that. But it's the factor of the A's. The Oakland A's are not even trying to win. The Red Sox are much better than the A's. There's a big gap between the number 5 teams in these two divisions.
Yes, I really liked the moves of the AL West a lot more than the AL East. I think that it's
absolutely
going
fair.
to
this was not a
muck
no-brainer.
Up the waters a lot more. Yeah.
This was not a no-brainer for me. Like you mentioned, you flipped them. I flipped them too.
Yeah.
I also think the Orioles are headed up, and I'm not so sure that the Angels are not headed down. They're still tricky. So, I mean, again, you can convince me either way. They need a lot of things, better front office. But yeah. Anyway, let's move into number 1, which was pretty easy. It's the NL East.
Yeah.
They seemed to be the best division last year, and they got better. The Braves are stacked with young talent, and they do a tremendous job of locking up that talent immediately. I wish they would have done that with Freddie Freeman, but Matt Olson looks pretty solid there. I love Michael Harris, Ronald Acuna, a superstar. He's going to get a full season, hopefully, in as well. This rotation is phenomenal. Then you got the New York Mets, who normally when you lose a guy like DeGrom, you're going to take a step back. Well, guess what? They brought in Justin Verlander, who won a Cy Young last year. They're going to be just fine. This team's going to rake as well. Really good offense. They kept a good chunk of those guys with them as well. They'll be fine. The Philadelphia Phillies, who made it to the World Series last year, coming in as the 3 seed from the NL East, brought in Trey Turner. They're going to be really fun. Now, Bryce Harper, that injury is scary. He will be back at some point this season. This rotation is going to get better and better, I think, though. The lineup has already gotten better. I really like what I'm seeing from the Phillies, a team that already made the World Series and got better from there. Then you've got the Miami Marlins, who have one of the best young rotations in baseball. Jacob said that they're in our MLB preview last year. I remember this one because this is one you were wrong about, that the ERAs of everyone were going to shoot up because of who they play in the NL East. They still had a Cy Young on their team. The rest of that rotation looked fine. The offense needs some help. Please get them some bats in that lineup that will make that rotation shoulder the load way less weight on their shoulders. And then the Washington Nationals, they're clearly the bottom of the barrel team right now, but at least they know what they're doing. They're going to rebuild. They knew they traded Juan Soto. They're going to hit the refresh button. And this team is a team, this franchise seems to be a team that can build pretty quickly. We saw that when they won that World Series. Wasn't anticipating them being there. They've got some young talent on the horizon, but it's going to be a while. They're clearly going to be the number 5 for 3 or 4 seasons minimum.
Yeah. I'm actually going to start with the Nationals because I want to piggyback off of what you said. They were wanting to do a rebuild around Soto, and that didn't work out. So they're a little stung, a little left at the altar, a little lost right now. They will find their footing. It might be even longer than that. They need to figure out what they're wanting to do. Marlins are, yes, they have some of the best pitching in the game right now, and they know that, and they know they need bats, but I feel like they are just asking way too much. They want more bats than those pitchers are worth without wanting to give up too much at the same time. They're going to be in limbo for a little while because they're going to dig themselves into holes where they're hanging on to guys out of stubbornness, and then they end up losing them anyway later on. Those two teams are background noise. The other three teams in this division are so exciting. We're good.
I hope you're not putting the Marlins in the same category as the Nationals.
No. Not in the same category.
Just
but
wanted to
not,
clarify that for our viewers.
they're not near the other three.
That's fair. That's fair.
I would even put them closer to the Nationals than I would
also
to the
fair.
other three.
But
Okay.
there's a pretty big gap between
Agreed.
the Marlins are kind of in the middle of the ocean.
Yes. Nope. You get nothing from me.
That's staying in.
So Mets lose the best pitcher in baseball and are still a better team. Just don't look at the luxury tax and everything looks just fine. We're fine with this. Phillies went on a tear late last year, and then they signed Turner, and then their pitching is going to develop into stronger arms. I mean, they are going to be very fun to watch. And it is going to come down to Harper a little bit. I mean, he might not be back until the All-Star break. So that is kind of scary, but Trey Turner's a very good consolation prize there. And then the Braves had a great offseason too. I mean, they are looking like a World Series team from a couple years back. I mean, there's just those three teams are going to do battle. It's going to be very exciting baseball to watch this summer.
And one thing neither of us mentioned for the Phillies is now they have a true leadoff with Trey Turner. Kyle Schwarber doesn't have to lead off anymore, which is the scariest leadoff hitter in all of baseball for multiple reasons. But that team definitely is better. But yeah, the NL East, without question, I think is going to be the funnest division to watch this season. But I just can't wait for baseball. A month away from the World Baseball Classic and closing in on opening day. There's a lot of exciting things. We will have a World Baseball Classic preview. They are releasing the rosters tomorrow in real time, so this will probably come out after that or the same day would be my goal. So be on the lookout for those. I can't wait for the WBC. But that is going to do it for episode number 28 of the Kingsmen Sports Podcast. The next time we are on, we of course have a Super Bowl recap. We will dive into the NBA. I have Luke waiting to get back on the show. We're going to talk about some things. Of course, we'll have the Minnesota Twins, Mount Rushmore, and probably take a sneak peek at those rosters for the World Baseball Classic right around the corner. That'll be coming up on episode number 29 of the Kingsmen Sports Podcast.